no matter how long it took. That's why you were investigating Kozlov. His money flows to a dozen terrorist organizations. The trafficking is just one revenue stream. The real business is chaos, fear, death. Maya looked at the children in the corner. I wanted justice, but somewhere along the way, I forgot what I was fighting for. It became about revenge, about hurting the people who hurt me. And now? Now I remember. Maya's eyes moved to Mara, to Eli and Sophie, to Ghost, and finally to Daniel. I'm fighting for them, for all the people who need someone to stand between them and the darkness. Headlights appeared through the windows. Engines. Voices. Deputy Hayes had arrived. The door opened. Men in tactical gear flooded in, followed by medical personnel. The boxcar that had been a sanctuary became a command center. They loaded Maya onto a stretcher. She grabbed Daniel's hand before they could take her away. Promise me something. What? Promise me you'll stay for the trial, for the recovery, for whatever comes next. Her grip tightened. Promise me you won't disappear into those mountains and find the death you were looking for. Daniel looked at her, at this woman who had crawled through a blizzard because 23 strangers mattered more than her own life. At this warrior who had lost her family and found a new mission. At this person who saw him, really saw him, and still asked him to stay. I promise. They took her away. The helicopter was already waiting. Daniel stood in the doorway of the boxcar, watching the organized chaos of the rescue. Mara was being interviewed by deputies. The children were being examined by paramedics. Kozlov was being loaded into a federal transport, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. Ghost sat beside Daniel, watching with him. We did good, boy. Ghost's tail wagged once. But we're not done yet. The dog looked up at him, amber eyes questioning. 23 women in a warehouse. They're still waiting. They don't know help is coming. Daniel touched Ghost's head. We're going to make sure they know. We're going to be there when they're rescued. We're going to see this through to the end. Ghost stood up, ears forward, body ready. That's what I thought. Nora approached, her face exhausted but triumphant. Hell of a night, Commander. It's not over yet. No, but the worst is past. She looked at the mountains, at the storm that was finally clearing. Hayes is arranging transport to Seattle. The tactical team is already mobilizing. They'll raid the warehouse at dawn. I want to be there. I figured you would. Nora almost smiled. You know, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen a lot of brave people do a lot of stupid things. But what you did tonight, taking on 6 armed men with 1 dog and a lot of attitude, that was something else. Ghost did most of the work. The dog's impressive, no doubt, but he takes his cues from you. Nora paused. Maya told me you came here to die, that this was supposed to be your last stop. She talks too much. She talks enough, and she's right. Nora met his eyes. Whatever darkness you're carrying, Commander, don't let it win. Not after tonight. Not after everything you've done. Those women in Seattle, they're going to live because of you. Mara and her kids, they're going to have a future because of you. That matters. You matter. Daniel didn't respond. He didn't know how. Nora turned to leave, then stopped. My partner, the one Kozlov killed. His name was Michael. He had a family, kids, a life. Her voice hardened. I spent 2 years waiting for a chance to bring down the people responsible. Tonight, I got that chance. Because you showed up. Because you fought. She looked at him one last time. Some things are worth living for, Commander. Sometimes you just have to be reminded what they are." She walked away. Daniel stood alone with Ghost, watching the flashing lights, listening to the organized chaos of justice finally being served. 6 months ago, he'd been in a hospital bed in Virginia, screaming his dead brother's names while nurses held him down. 5 months ago, he'd been in a therapist's office, staring at the wall, refusing to speak. 4 months ago, he'd been in his empty apartment, holding his service weapon, wondering if the next breath was worth taking. And now he was here, standing in a Montana mountain boxcar, having saved lives, having stopped monsters, having found something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. Ghost pressed against his leg. The dog's warmth was real, solid, undeniable. "Marcus would have liked you," Daniel said quietly. "He loved dogs. Had a golden retriever named Charlie, who used to sleep on his bed." Ghost's ears twitched. He would have said I was being stupid, driving to Montana to die. The storm had passed. The sun was rising. And Daniel Mercer, Navy SEAL, survivor, warrior reborn, was finally ready to live again. The flight to Seattle took 4 hours. Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in the back of the FBI transport aircraft, Ghost pressed against his legs, reviewing the tactical briefing that Agent Priya Desai had sent to his tablet. The warehouse was on the outskirts of the city, near the port. Officially, it belonged to a shell company that imported furniture from Eastern Europe. Unofficially, it was the final stop for 23 women who had been promised jobs, education, futures, and delivered into hell instead. "Commander Mercer," a voice interrupted his reading. Special Agent Torres, the tactical team leader, sat down across from him. He was mid-40s, stocky, the kind of face that had seen too many operations go wrong. "I need to address something before we land." "Go ahead." "You're not FBI. You're not law enforcement. Technically, you're a civilian who happened to stumble into one of our operations." Torres leaned forward. "What you did in Montana was impressive, but Seattle is different. This is a coordinated federal raid with protocols, rules of engagement, and chain of command." "I understand." "Do you? Because the way I hear it, you went full Rambo on a mountain ridge last night with nothing but a dog and bad attitude." Daniel almost smiled. "Ghost did most of the work." "The dog's not the one I'm worried about." Torres studied him. "Maya Chen vouched for you, said you saved her life, protected civilians, and took down Kozlov's entire security team single-handed. She also said you came to Montana to kill yourself." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She talks too much." "She talks enough. And right now, she's in surgery at a hospital in Billings, fighting for her life, because she trusted you to finish what she started." Torres's eyes hardened. "Don't let her down. Don't let those women down. And don't do anything stupid that gets my agents killed." "I won't." "Good, because if you do, I'll personally put you in a cell next to Kozlov." Torres stood. "We land in 30 minutes. Briefing in 20. He walked away. Daniel looked at Ghost. "Everyone's a critic." Ghost's tail wagged once. The dog didn't care about critics. The dog only cared about the mission. The briefing was thorough. 23 confirmed hostages, 6 to 8 guards heavily armed. The warehouse had 3 entry points, front, back, and the loading dock that connected to the port. FBI tactical teams would hit all 3 simultaneously. Daniel's job was simple: stay with the medical team, help with hostage extraction once the building was secured. He didn't argue. Torres was right. This wasn't his operation. These weren't his people. He was a guest, a witness, a lucky accident who had stumbled into something bigger than himself. But Ghost had other ideas. The moment they landed, the dog began acting strange, pacing, whining, constantly looking toward the east. Daniel had seen this behavior before, in Yemen, in Afghanistan, in every combat zone where Ghost had sensed danger before anyone else. "What is it, boy?" Ghost barked once, sharp, urgent. "Commander Mercer." Priya's voice came through his earpiece. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Kozlov's network is more extensive than we thought. We're picking up chatter suggesting the warehouse guards have been tipped off. They know we're coming." Daniel's blood went cold. "How?" "We're still investigating, but someone on our side is leaking information." A mole. In the FBI, which meant the tactical team was walking into an ambush. "Torres needs to know." "I'm trying to reach him. His comms are down." "Down or jammed?" Silence. Then, "I don't know." Daniel looked at Ghost. The dog was already moving toward the warehouse, pulling at his lead like something invisible was calling him. "I'm going in." "Commander, you can't." "If Torres and his team walk into an ambush, they're dead. If the guards panic, the hostages are dead." Daniel's voice hardened. "I'm not losing 23 people because of protocol." He ran. Ghost ran beside him, silent and deadly, a shadow moving through shadows. The warehouse loomed ahead, a massive structure that looked abandoned from the outside, but hummed with activity underneath. The tactical teams were already in position. Daniel could see them, black shapes against darker darkness, waiting for the go signal. He reached Torres's position just as the team leader was about to give the order. "Stand down!" Torres whipped around, weapon raised. "What the hell are you?" "It's a trap. They know you're coming. Someone leaked the operation." "That's impossible. This information is classified." "Your comms are jammed." "That doesn't happen by accident." Daniel grabbed Torres's arm. "Think about it. Kozlov's been one step ahead this whole time. He's got people everywhere. Why wouldn't he have someone in the bureau?" Torres's face went pale. If that's true, your teams are about to breach a building full of armed guards who are waiting for them." Daniel pointed to Ghost. "He knows. He's been acting strange since we landed. Something's wrong in there. Something more than guards and hostages." Torres hesitated. Years of training, protocols, procedures, all of it warring with the instinct that told him Daniel was right. "How do I know you're not the mole?" "You don't. But if I were, why would I warn you? Why wouldn't I just let your teams walk into the kill zone?" Torres stared at him for a long moment. Then he raised his radio. "All teams, hold position. Repeat, hold position. We have possible compromise. Do not breach." Static. No response. "All teams, acknowledge." Nothing. "The comms are completely down," Torres said. "All of them." "Then we need to reach them manually, before they breach." Daniel moved. Ghost followed. They circled the warehouse, using cargo containers as cover, heading toward the back entry where Team 2 was positioned. They were too late. The first explosion lit up the night. Then the second. Then gunfire. Automatic weapons, the distinctive chatter of AK-47s against the disciplined bursts of FBI tactical rifles. "No!" Daniel ran toward the sound. Ghost sprinted ahead, barking now, abandoning stealth for speed. Team 2 was pinned down. 3 agents were hit, bleeding in the loading dock. 2 more were returning fire from behind a forklift, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. Daniel didn't think. He acted. He grabbed a fallen agent's rifle and opened fire, drawing the guards' attention away from the survivors. Ghost launched himself at the nearest threat, taking down a man with an assault rifle before he could turn. "Who the hell are you?" one of the agents shouted. "Help! Get your people out!" The agent didn't argue. He dragged his wounded colleagues toward cover, while Daniel and Ghost provided suppressing fire. More guards poured from the warehouse. 8, 10, 12. Far more than the briefing had suggested. Kozlov hadn't just tipped them off. He'd reinforced them. "Commander Mercer!" Torres's voice crackled through a working radio. One of the fallen agents. "Sit rep!" "Team 2 compromised. Multiple casualties. We need backup now." "Team 1 is pinned down at the front entrance. Team 3 is under heavy fire at the loading dock." Torres's voice was tight with controlled fury. "We're surrounded." "What about the hostages?" "Unknown. We can't get inside." Daniel looked at the warehouse, at the doors that led to 23 women waiting to be saved, at the hell that stood between them and freedom. "I can." "Commander, don't—" Daniel switched off the radio. He turned to Ghost. "You ready, boy?" Ghost's amber eyes gleamed with a particular intensity that meant yes, always, whatever you need. They moved. Not toward the main entrances where the firefights raged, toward the side of the warehouse, where a small service door had been noted in the briefing, but dismissed as too well guarded for a primary breach point. It was well guarded. 2 men with submachine guns watching the door, waiting for exactly this kind of flanking maneuver. Ghost handled one. Daniel handled the other. Neither guard had time to raise an alarm. The door was locked. Daniel used a breaching charge from the fallen agent's kit, a small explosive, precisely placed, barely audible over the chaos outside. The door blew. Daniel went in low. Ghost went in fast. The interior of the warehouse was divided into sections. The front was legitimate. Furniture, crates, the facade of a normal import business. The back was something else entirely. Cages. Daniel stopped. His training screamed at him to keep moving, but his humanity demanded a moment of horror. Metal cages, stacked too high, lined the walls like an obscene filing system. Inside each cage was a woman. Young women, old women, terrified women, huddled in corners with nothing but blankets and fear. 23 of them, exactly as the intelligence had promised. And standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by 4 armed guards, was a man Daniel didn't recognize. "Ah, Commander Mercer." The man smiled. He was tall, elegant, graying at the temples. He wore a suit that cost more than Daniel's truck. "I was hoping you'd make it. Victor told me so much about you." "Who are you?" "My name is irrelevant. What matters is what I represent." The man gestured at the cages. "A $50 million investment that your interference has put at risk." "Let them go." "Or what? You'll shoot me?" The man laughed. "Look around, Commander. You're one man with one dog in a room full of guns. The math doesn't favor you." "The math never favors me. That's never stopped me before." "Yes, I heard about Montana. Impressive work. But this isn't Montana." The man's smile faded. "This is business, and business has rules that even Navy SEALs can't break. Watch me." Daniel moved. Ghost moved with him. The first guard went down before he could raise his weapon. The second fired wide, his shot going into the ceiling as Ghost's jaws closed on his arm. The third and fourth were faster, more disciplined. They got shots off, one of them grazing Daniel's shoulder, but he was already inside their guard, too close for rifles, exactly where a SEAL was most dangerous. It was over in 12 seconds. The elegant man stood alone, his guards crumpled around him, his expensive suit spattered with someone else's blood. "Impressive," he said. His voice didn't waver. "But it doesn't matter. Even if you take me, even if you free these women, the network survives. There are 100 warehouses like this. 1,000 men like me. You can't stop." Daniel hit him. Hard. The man collapsed like his strings had been cut. "Ghost! Guard! The dog positioned himself over the unconscious man, teeth bared, ready to shred anyone who tried to move him. Daniel went to the cages. The locks were electronic. Keypad entry, probably biometric backup. He didn't have time to hack them. Priya, I'm inside. I have eyes on the hostages. I need those locks opened. Working on it. Her voice was strained. The system is encrypted. It'll take... I don't have time. Commander, I can't just... A voice interrupted. Young, accented, terrified. There's a manual override. Behind the control panel. A red switch. Daniel turned. One of the caged women was pressed against the bars, pointing at a metal box in the wall. How do you know that? Because they made me watch them test it. Every day. To remind me that I could never escape. Her eyes were hollow, but determined. Free us. Please. Daniel ran to the panel, tore it open, found the switch, red, exactly as she'd said. He pulled it. The locks clicked. 23 cages, 23 doors swinging open. 23 women who had been promised slavery, discovering that freedom was still possible. Everyone out, now! Follow the sound of the gunfire. Go the opposite direction. There are agents outside who will protect you. Some of them couldn't walk, too weak from malnutrition, too damaged from abuse. Daniel and Ghost helped them, carrying women who couldn't carry themselves, guiding them toward the service door he'd breached. Commander Mercer! Torres's voice was back on the radio. What's your status? Hostages are coming out the east side service door. They need medical attention. Multiple trauma cases. Copy that. We're pushing through. The guards are breaking. Where's the mole? Silence. Then, we think we know. Agent Richards. He went dark 20 minutes ago. We're tracking his phone. Track faster. He's the reason this turned into a massacre. Daniel reached the service door. The first women were already outside, being met by agents who had pushed through to create a corridor. Medical personnel were running toward them with stretchers and blankets. One woman stopped at the door, the same one who had told him about the override switch. She turned to face Daniel. You're the one from Montana, the one who saved the FBI woman. How did you... They talked about you. The guards. They said a crazy American killed half of Kozlov's men with nothing but a dog. She looked at Ghost, then back at Daniel. They were afraid of you. I could hear it in their voices. You're safe now. That's what matters. Safe. She tested the word like it was foreign. I'd forgotten what that felt like. You'll remember. It'll take time, but you'll remember. She touched his arm. A brief contact, light as breath. Thank you for remembering us when everyone else forgot. She walked out into the chaos, into freedom, into a future that had been stolen and was finally being returned. Daniel watched her go. Then he turned back to the warehouse. Ghost, we're not done yet. The elegant man was gone. Ghost was standing where Daniel had left him, but the unconscious body was no longer there. A trail of blood led toward the back of the warehouse, toward a section that hadn't been in the briefing. He must have backup, Daniel muttered. Hidden room. Escape route. Ghost was already following the trail, nose to the ground, tracking with the same intensity he'd shown in a dozen combat zones. They found the hidden door behind a false wall. It led to a tunnel, concrete, industrial, probably connecting to the port's shipping infrastructure. The elegant man was 50 yards ahead, running despite his injuries, desperate to escape. Daniel ran faster. Ghost ran fastest. The dog caught up first, launching himself at the fleeing man with the same controlled violence he'd shown all night. The elegant man went down hard, screaming as Ghost's jaws closed on his leg. Daniel reached them seconds later. Call him off. For God's sake, call him off. Tell me your name. What? Your name and who you work for. I'll die before I... Ghost. Harder. The dog complied. The man screamed. Harrington. James Harrington. I work for the consortium. We fund Kozlov's operations. The consortium? Businessmen, politicians, people who need certain services performed without questions. Harrington was sobbing now. We provide capital. Kozlov provides product. Everyone profits. Everyone except the women in those cages. They're nobody. They don't matter. They're just... Daniel hit him again. Harder this time. They matter. They always mattered. Daniel leaned close. Ghost, release. The dog let go. Harrington collapsed, clutching his bleeding leg. You're going to tell the FBI everything. Names, accounts, operations. Every dirty secret your consortium has been hiding. Daniel's voice was ice. And if you lie, if you leave anything out, I will find you. And next time, I won't call him off. He pulled Harrington to his feet and dragged him back through the tunnel, back to the warehouse, back to the agents who were finally securing the building. Torres met them at the service door. You found another one. James Harrington says he's part of something called the consortium, funders for Kozlov's network. Torres's eyes widened. The consortium? We've been trying to identify them for years. He's ready to talk. Very ready. Daniel handed off the prisoner. What's the casualty count? 3 agents dead, 7 wounded, all hostages recovered alive. Torres's voice was heavy with grief and relief. It could have been worse. Would have been worse if you hadn't warned us. It should have been better. Your people died because of a traitor. Agent Richards is in custody. He broke when we confronted him, admitted he'd been passing information to Kozlov for 2 years. Torres's jaw tightened. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. That's not enough, but it's what the law allows. Daniel nodded. The rage was still there, burning beneath the surface. But it wasn't his rage to act on. The system would handle Richards. The system would handle Harrington. The system would, eventually, handle all of them. His job was done. Commander Mercer, an agent approached with a satellite phone. Call for you. Agent Chen. Daniel took the phone. Maya? You did it. Her voice was weak, but triumphant. Priya just told me. 23 women. All of them safe. How are you? Alive. The doctors say I'll need months of physical therapy, but I'll make a full recovery. A pause. How are you? Daniel looked at Ghost, at the agents processing prisoners, at the women being loaded into ambulances. Finally, free. I'm alive too. Really alive. For the first time in 6 months. I'm glad. Maya's voice softened. When this is over, when the trials are done and the paperwork is filed, I want to see you. I want to thank you properly. You don't have to thank me. I want to. And I want to know you, the man behind the uniform, the person who saved my life. Another pause. My cousin Robert used to talk about the men he served with. He said they were the best people he'd ever known. Brothers. Family. Her voice cracked. I think he would have liked you. I think he would have liked you too. Get some rest, Daniel. You've earned it. The line went dead. Daniel handed back the phone. He stood in the chaos of the aftermath, surrounded by the evidence of everything he'd done and everything that still needed to be done. Ghost pressed against his leg. Warm, solid, constant. You know what, boy? I think we might actually be okay. Ghost's tail wagged. For the first time in 6 months, Daniel believed it. The weeks that followed the Seattle raid passed in a blur of debriefings, depositions, and the particular exhaustion that comes after combat adrenaline finally drains away. Daniel spent most of it in hotel rooms and federal offices, answering the same questions over and over until the words lost all meaning. Ghost stayed with him through every session. The FBI made exceptions for therapy dogs all the time, they said. They could make an exception for a German shepherd who had helped bring down one of the largest trafficking networks in North American history. Commander Mercer. Agent Torres appeared in the doorway of the conference room where Daniel was waiting. Good news. The prosecution has officially declined to charge you with anything. Was that a possibility? You killed 4 men, wounded 6 others, and breached a federal operation without authorization. Yes, it was a possibility. Torres almost smiled. But given that your actions saved 23 hostages and exposed a consortium of criminals we've been hunting for years, the Attorney General decided discretion was the better part of valor. What about Kozlov? Arraignment is next week. The evidence from Maya's drive, combined with Harrington's testimony, guarantees conviction. He's looking at life without parole. Torres paused. There's something else. What? Maya Chen has been released from the hospital. She's asking to see you. Daniel's heart did something unexpected. It jumped. Actually jumped, like he was a teenager instead of a 35-year-old combat veteran who had killed more people than he wanted to count. Where is she? Rehabilitation center in Virginia. She's got months of physical therapy ahead of her, but the doctors say she'll make a full recovery. Torres handed him a slip of paper. Her contact information, in case you want to continue what you started. What I started? Whatever you want to call it. Torres met his eyes. You saved each other, Commander. That kind of thing creates bonds that don't break easily. Don't pretend you haven't thought about it. Daniel had thought about it. Every night, lying awake in hotel rooms that all looked the same, he'd thought about Maya Chen. About the woman who had crawled through a blizzard because 23 strangers mattered more than her pain. About the FBI agent who had seen him at his worst and still asked him to stay. I'll think about it, he said. Don't think too long. Torres turned to leave. Life's short, Commander, especially for people in our line of work. Daniel looked at the paper in his hand. Then he looked at Ghost. What do you think, boy? Should we go see her? Ghost's tail wagged. That was answer enough. The rehabilitation center was in a quiet suburb of Alexandria, a converted mansion surrounded by gardens that probably looked beautiful in spring. Daniel arrived in early March, the snow from Montana long melted, the trauma from the boxcar beginning to fade into memory. Maya was waiting for him in the garden. She was in a wheelchair, temporary, the doctors insisted, just until her core strength returned. But her face was alive in a way it hadn't been in that frozen drift. You came. You asked me to. I wasn't sure you would. Maya gestured to an empty bench beside her. Sit, please. We've a lot to talk about. Daniel sat. Ghost positioned himself between them, his head resting on Maya's knee, accepting her gentle strokes with the patient dignity of a dog who knew he was loved. He's beautiful, Maya said. I didn't get a chance to really look at him in Montana. Too busy dying. He found you. If he hadn't reacted when we drove past, I would have kept going. Then I owe him my life. You owe him a steak. He prefers ribeye. Maya laughed. It was a good sound, strong, genuine, the laugh of a woman who had remembered how to find joy. How are you? She asked. Better. The debriefings are done. The charges are dropped. I'm officially a free man. That's not what I meant. Maya's eyes searched his face. How are you, Daniel? Really? He considered the question. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have been able to answer it. 6 months ago, he hadn't been able to feel anything except grief and guilt and the desperate need for it all to stop. I'm alive, he said finally. Really alive, for the first time since Yemen. Tell me about Yemen. Maya, I want to know. Not the official version. The real version. What happened to you? Daniel looked at the garden, at the bare branches that would bloom soon, at the promise of spring after a long, dark winter. My team was clearing the compound, he said quietly. Intelligence said it was empty. It wasn't. There was an IED, massive, strategically placed. I was outside checking the perimeter with Ghost when it detonated. You survived. 6 men didn't. Marcus Cole, James Reeves, Anthony Santos, William Park, David Kim, Robert Chen. He paused. Your cousin. I know. I've known since I started investigating Kozlov's network. Maya's voice was gentle, but unflinching. The money that funded that IED came through his shell companies. That's why I went undercover. To find the people responsible for killing my family. Did you know I was Robert's team leader? Yes. And you still ask me to help you. I asked you to help because of it. Because I knew what kind of man Robert trusted. Because I knew that if anyone could stop Kozlov, it would be someone who had lost as much as I had. Maya reached out and touched his hand. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. It doesn't matter. It matters. The truth always matters. Maya's grip tightened. Robert wrote to me before that last deployment. He said his team leader was the best man he'd ever served with. He said you made everyone around you better. He said if anything happened to him, I should find you. Daniel's throat tightened. He said that? He said you would know what to do. That you always knew what to do. Maya's eyes were wet. I think he was right. They sat in silence for a long moment. Ghost shifted between them, his warmth a bridge across the gap of grief and guilt that had separated them. I blamed myself, Daniel said finally, for surviving, for not being in that building, for not seeing the trap. That's not your fault. I know that now. He looked at her. But knowing and believing are different things. I spent 6 months driving across the country trying to outrun the guilt. I came to Montana to make a decision, to end it or start over. And I found you in the snow. And suddenly the decision was made. Daniel's voice cracked. You gave me something to fight for. You gave me a reason to keep breathing. Maya was crying now, silent tears that ran down her cheeks without shame. I've been thinking about what you said, she whispered, about why you were in Montana, about what you were planning to do. Maya, let me finish, please. She took a breath. When Kozlov shot me and left me to die, I had a choice. I could lie down and let the cold take me. I could give up, the way part of me wanted to. But I didn't. I crawled. For 3 hours I crawled through that blizzard because 23 women needed me to survive. That's not the same thing. Yes, it is. We both had a choice. We both chose to keep fighting. Maya's eyes met his. And we both found each other. In the worst possible circumstances, in the most unlikely place, we found someone who understood. I'm broken, Maya. I'm a mess. I have nightmares every night, and I wake up screaming names of men who are dead, and I don't know if I'll ever be normal again. I don't want normal, Maya smiled through her tears. I want real. I want honest. I want someone who knows what darkness feels like and still chooses light. She paused. I want you. Daniel didn't know what to say. The words were there, somewhere, but they were buried under years of military discipline, months of isolation, a lifetime of believing that love was something that happened to other people. So he didn't say anything. He just leaned forward and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, tentative, the kiss of 2 people who had been through hell and were just beginning to believe that heaven might still be possible. When they pulled apart, Ghost was watching them, with what could only be described as approval. "I think he likes this development," Maya said. "He has strong opinions about everything." "Then I'd better stay on his good side." Daniel laughed. It was a strange sensation, genuine laughter, the kind that came from somewhere deep and real.
"What happens now?" he asked.
"I don't know. I have months of recovery ahead of me. The trial, the paperwork, the bureaucracy of justice." Maya took his hand again. "But I know what I want. I want you to stay. Not just for the trial, for whatever comes after. I have a cabin in Montana. I know, your grandfather's place. I was thinking of going back there, after everything is done, to figure out what's next. Would there be room for a recovering FBI agent and her physical therapy equipment?" Daniel looked at her, at this woman who had crawled through a blizzard for strangers, who had seen his darkness and chosen light anyway, who had given him something to fight for when he'd forgotten how. "There's room for whatever you need," he said, "for as long as you want." The trial began 6 weeks later. Viktor Kozlov sat in the defendant's chair, his expensive suit replaced by prison orange, his cultured smile replaced by a mask of barely controlled fury. Daniel testified on the third day. He walked into the courtroom in his dress uniform, the one he'd thought he would never wear again, and told the story of a blizzard, a boxcar, and a woman who refused to die. "Commander Mercer," the prosecutor said, "can you describe what you found when you reached the FBI agent?" "She was face down in the snow, hypothermic, gunshot wound to her lower right side. She'd been crawling for approximately 3 hours based on the blood trail." "And what did she tell you?" "She told me about the trafficking operation, the women being held in Seattle, the flash drive with evidence against Kozlov's network." Daniel's voice was steady. "She told me that if she died, 23 other people would die with her." "And what did you do?" "I promised her I would save them." "Did you keep that promise?" Daniel looked at the gallery, at Maya, sitting in the front row, healthy and strong, and watching him with eyes that held nothing but pride, at Mara, who had traveled from her new home in Oregon to testify about the boxcar, at the 23 women, some of whom had come to support the man who had kicked in their cages and told them to run. "Yes," Daniel said, "I kept that promise." The defense attorney tried to discredit him, asked about PTSD, about the gun in his duffel bag, about whether a suicidal veteran was a reliable witness. Daniel answered every question with the same calm precision he'd shown in combat. "Is it true that you came to Montana with the intention of taking your own life?" "I came to Montana with the intention of making a decision about my future. I made that decision when I found Agent Chen." "And what decision was that?" "To live." Daniel's voice hardened. "To fight for the people who needed protecting. To honor the men I lost by being the kind of man they believed I was." The attorney had no further questions. Kozlov was convicted on all counts: trafficking, racketeering, attempted murder, conspiracy. The judge sentenced him to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. As the verdict was read, Kozlov turned and looked at Daniel. His eyes held nothing but hatred, cold, bottomless, eternal. Daniel looked back. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just held the gaze of the monster who had destroyed so many lives and let him see that the destruction had failed. Kozlov looked away first. James Harrington, the elegant man from the warehouse, received 30 years in exchange for his testimony against the consortium. 27 businessmen and politicians were indicted. 12 more were under investigation. The network that had funded terror and slavery across 2 continents was crumbling, one arrest at a time. Agent Richards, the mole, received life without parole for treason and conspiracy to commit murder. He had tried to bargain, tried to offer information about other networks, other operations. The judge had not been interested. "You betrayed your country, your colleagues, and the oath you swore," the judge said. "The only mercy you deserve is the mercy you showed the people you helped destroy, which is none." 3 months after the trial ended, Daniel drove back to Montana. Maya sat beside him in the passenger seat, healthy and strong, and arguing about which route to take. Ghost sat in the back, his head thrust between them, offering his opinion whenever he felt it was needed. "You're both wrong," Maya said. "Highway 90 is faster. Highway 2 is more scenic. I'm not interested in scenic. I'm interested in getting to the cabin before dark. Ghost, thoughts?" The dog barked once. "Highway 2 it is." "You can't let the dog make navigation decisions. He has excellent instincts. He found you in a blizzard." Maya laughed and settled back in her seat. "Fine, Highway 2. But if we're late, I'm blaming both of you." They weren't late. The cabin appeared through the trees just as the sun was beginning to set, painting the mountains in shades of gold and purple that no photograph could capture. Daniel stopped the truck and stared at the place he had thought would be his final destination, the place where he had planned to end his pain. It looked different now, smaller, less like a destination and more like a beginning. "It's beautiful," Maya said softly. "It belonged to my grandfather. He used to bring me here when I was a kid, before I knew what war was." "And now?" "Now it's ours, if you want it to be." Maya looked at him, at the cabin, at Ghost, who was already exploring the perimeter with the focused intensity of a dog who took security very seriously. "I want it to be," she said. They spent the first week settling in. Maya's physical therapy equipment took up most of the spare bedroom. Ghost claimed the spot in front of the fireplace. Daniel split wood, fixed the roof, and remembered how to do the simple physical work that had been his grandfather's religion. Mara called on the 4th day. "We're settled," she said. "The kids are in school, I have a job. Deputy Hayes helped me get the restraining order finalized." "How are they, Eli and Sophie?" "They ask about Ghost every day." Mara's voice warmed. "They want to know if they can visit." "Anytime. The door is always open." "Daniel," Mara paused, "I never thanked you properly. For that night. For everything." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. Because before you came, I thought I was trapped. I thought there was no way out. I thought my children would grow up watching their father destroy me." Her voice cracked. "You showed me there was another option. You showed me that fighting back was possible." "You showed yourself. I just provided the opportunity." "The opportunity was enough. Sometimes that's all anyone needs. A chance. A moment when escape becomes possible." Mara took a breath. "I'm naming my new business after you. Mercer Security Consulting. I hope that's okay." Daniel laughed. "You're starting a security business? Someone has to protect women like me. Women who are running from monsters. Women who need a safe place and someone to stand between them and the dark." Her voice hardened. "I learned a lot in that boxcar, Daniel. From you, from Maya, from Ghost. I learned that protecting people isn't just about fighting. It's about being present, being steady, being the person who doesn't run away." "I think your business is going to be very successful." "I think so too." Mara paused again. "Take care of yourself, Commander. And take care of Maya. She's special." "I know." The phone call ended. Daniel sat on the porch with Ghost at his feet and watched the sun set behind the mountains. Maya came out a few minutes later, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She gave one to Daniel and sat beside him. "Who was that?" "Mara. She's starting the security consulting firm. Named it after me." "That's sweet." "That's terrifying. I have no idea what I'm doing." "You know exactly what you're doing." Maya leaned against his shoulder. You're living, Daniel. For the first time in months, you're actually living. She was right. He could feel it. The slow unfreezing of something that had been frozen since Yemen. The gradual return of sensation to a heart that had gone numb. I dreamed about them last night, he said quietly. Marcus and the team. But it wasn't a nightmare. They were just there, sitting around a fire, laughing, like they used to. What were they saying? Marcus said I was being an idiot, said I should have kissed you sooner. Daniel smiled. He always had opinions about my love life. Smart man. The smartest. He would have liked you. I would have liked him. Maya took his hand. Tell me about them. All of them. I want to know the men who shaped you. So Daniel told her. About Marcus, who had been his best friend since BUD/S training. About James, who made terrible jokes but always had your back. About Anthony, who could fix anything mechanical and had a wife and 3 kids waiting at home. About William, who had joined the teams to prove something to his father and ended up proving something to himself. About David, who had saved Daniel's life twice and never let him forget it. About Robert, Maya's cousin, who had been the youngest and the bravest and the one who believed most fiercely in what they were doing. He talked for hours, until the sun set completely and the stars came out, until Ghost fell asleep at their feet and the coffee went cold. And when he was done, Maya held him while he cried. Not the tears of grief. He had shed those long ago. These were different. These were the tears of healing, of letting go, of finally allowing himself to remember his brothers with joy instead of pain. They would be proud of you, Maya whispered. I hope so. I know so, because I'm proud of you. She kissed his forehead. And I didn't even know you then. They sat together until the cold drove them inside. Ghost woke up and followed, taking his place by the fireplace with a contented sigh of a dog who had found his forever home. Daniel looked at the fire, at Maya, curled up on the couch with a book she wasn't really reading, at the dog who had saved his life in more ways than he could count. 6 months ago, he had come to this cabin to die. Now he was living, really living, with a woman who understood his darkness and loved him anyway, with a dog who refused to give up on him, with the memory of 6 brothers who would want nothing more than for him to find peace. The nightmares still came sometimes. He still woke up screaming names. He still heard the explosion when the world got too quiet. But Maya was there to hold him through the dark nights. Ghost was there to press against his legs when the panic rose. And slowly, day by day, the darkness was receding. He was healing. Not fixed, not whole, but healing. And for the first time since Yemen, Daniel Mercer believed that healing was possible. 1 year after the blizzard, Daniel received a letter. It arrived at the cabin in a plain envelope. No return address. The postmark from a federal penitentiary in Colorado. Ghost sniffed it suspiciously before Daniel opened it. It's from Kozlov, Daniel said, scanning the handwriting. Maya looked up from her laptop. She was working remotely now, consulting for the FBI on trafficking cases, using her experience to help others avoid the same fate. What does he want? To gloat, probably, or threaten. Daniel read the letter aloud. Commander Mercer, I write to you from a cell that measures 8 feet by 10 feet. I have spent 347 days counting the cracks in the ceiling, memorizing the schedule of guards, and thinking about you. You believe you have won. You believe justice has been served. But justice is a human invention, and human inventions are flawed. My network survives. My money survives. My legacy survives. And when I die, which will not be for many years despite your hopes, there will be others to take my place. You saved 23 women. I have sold thousands. You destroyed one operation. I have funded dozens. In the mathematics of suffering, Commander, you are a rounding error. But that is not why I write. I write because I want you to know something that the newspapers and the trials and the celebrations did not tell you. I write because even monsters have the capacity for honesty when the end is near. You were right. In the warehouse, when you told me that the math never favors you, but it never stops you. You were right. Men like me spend our lives calculating odds, measuring risks, ensuring that every decision maximizes profit and minimizes exposure. And men like you spend your lives ignoring the calculations entirely. That is why you will always defeat us. Not because you are stronger or smarter or more determined, but because you do not count the cost before you act. You simply act. And that makes you unpredictable in ways that no algorithm can account for. I will die in this cell. The doctors say my liver is failing, a consequence of years of excess that I do not regret. When I am gone, my name will be forgotten. My empire will crumble. My legacy will be a footnote in the history of human trafficking. But you, Commander Mercer, you will be remembered. By the women you saved. By the children who grew up free because of your actions. By the FBI agent who loves you and the dog who refused to let you die. I hate you for that. I hate you with every fiber of my being. But I also envy you because you have something that all my money and power could never buy. You have meaning. Victor Kozlov. Daniel set down the letter. Maya was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Are you okay? I don't know. He looked at Ghost, who was still sniffing the envelope. I expected threats, promises of revenge, not this. He's dying. The Bureau told me last month. Liver cancer, stage 4. They give him 6 months. You knew? I was going to tell you. I just wasn't sure how. Maya stood and walked to him. Does it change anything, knowing he's dying? Daniel thought about it, about the man who had shot Maya and left her to freeze, about the network that had enslaved thousands of women, about the 63 victims whose names they had recovered from Harrington's files, the ones who hadn't survived. No, he said finally. It doesn't change anything. He's still a monster. He's still responsible for unimaginable suffering. The fact that he's dying doesn't erase what he did. But there's something sad about it. Dying alone in a cell, writing letters to the people who put you there? Daniel shook his head. I almost feel sorry for him. Don't. Maya's voice hardened. He doesn't deserve your pity. He doesn't deserve anything except exactly what he's getting. I know. Daniel pulled her close. It's just strange. Spending a year thinking about a man, dreaming about him, wishing him dead, and then finding out that death is coming for him anyway. And it doesn't feel like victory. That's because you're not a monster. Maya touched his face. Monsters celebrate death. Good men just accept it. Ghost barked once. His "Enough serious talk" bark. Daniel and Maya both laughed. All right, boy, we hear you. Daniel crumpled the letter and tossed it in the fireplace. That's the last time Victor Kozlov takes up space in our home. The flames consumed the paper. Daniel watched it burn until there was nothing left but ash. One chapter closed, another beginning. The memorial ceremony was held in April, exactly 1 year after the Seattle raid. All 23 survivors were invited, along with their families, the FBI agents who had worked the case, and the civilian witnesses who had become heroes. Daniel wore his dress uniform. Maya wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes. Ghost wore a service dog vest that Mara had custom made, black with gold lettering that read, Canine Hero. "He looks ridiculous," Daniel said. "He looks distinguished," Maya corrected. "Like a proper gentleman." Ghost seemed to agree with Maya. He pranced around the venue with his head held high, accepting attention from everyone who stopped to pet him. Mara arrived with Eli and Sophie, who immediately abandoned their mother to tackle Ghost in a group hug.
The dog went down willingly, tail wagging, tongue licking. The fierce warrior transformed into the gentlest playmate.
"He's so good with them," Mara said, watching. "Sometimes I forget he's the same dog who took down those men in Montana." "He contains multitudes," Daniel said. "That's what makes him special." "That's what makes all of you special." Mara hugged him. A quick, fierce embrace that said more than words. "Thank you. For everything. For then and for now. You're the one who did the hard work, building a new life, protecting other women, turning pain into purpose." "I learned from the best." Mara pulled back and smiled. "Mercer Security is thriving, by the way. We've helped 47 women escape abusive situations in the past year. 47 futures that wouldn't exist without what you taught me in that boxcar." "What did I teach you?" "That fighting back is possible. That strength doesn't mean never being afraid. It means acting despite the fear."
Mara's eyes glistened. "That's the lesson I pass on to every woman who comes through my doors. You're not trapped. You're just waiting for the right moment to run." Deputy Sheriff Nora Keene appeared, looking uncomfortable in a dress instead of her uniform. She had been promoted since the raid. County Sheriff now, the first woman to hold the position in the region's history. "Hell of a turnout," she said, looking at the crowd. "Never thought I'd see the day when federal agents and local deputies shared a buffet table." "Times change," Daniel said. "Sometimes. Others stay the same." Nora's expression darkened. "I got word last month. Another trafficking ring, operating out of Canada. Different players, same playbook." "Have you reported it?" "To who? The FBI is stretched thin. Local resources are non-existent. And the people doing the trafficking have deep pockets and deeper connections." Nora met his eyes. "I could use some help, unofficial help, from someone who knows how to operate outside the normal channels." Daniel looked at Maya. She was watching him with an expression that said she already knew what he was thinking. "I'm retired," he said carefully. "I'm not asking you to enlist. I'm asking you to consult, to help me build a case the way you built the case against Kozlov." Nora paused. "To teach me how to fight monsters." "That's not something you can teach. Either you have it or you don't." "Then help me find people who have it. Veterans like you, agents like Maya, good people who are tired of watching bad things happen." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the letter from Kozlov, about the admission that men like Daniel were unpredictable, unquantifiable, impossible to defeat because they didn't calculate costs before acting. He thought about Mara's security firm, about the 47 women who had escaped because someone gave them the courage to run. He thought about the boxcar, about the moment when he had found Maya in the snow, and decided that her life mattered more than his death. "I'll think about it," he said. "That's all I ask." Nora nodded. "Enjoy the ceremony, Commander. You've earned it." She walked away. Maya slid her hand into Daniel's. "You're going to say yes." "Probably." "I could help. The FBI connections, the intelligence analysis. We could build something together." "Something like what?" "Something that helps people who can't help themselves. A network, a family, a community of warriors who fight for the vulnerable." Maya's eyes gleamed. We could call it the Boxcar Project.
Daniel laughed. That's a terrible name.
It's a perfect name, because that's where it started. In a forgotten boxcar, where strangers became a family.
Maya squeezed his hand.
Think about it. All the skills we have between us. Combat, investigation, analysis, protection.
All the connections we've made. Law enforcement, military, victims advocates. We could do so much good.
We already did good. We could do more.
Maya's voice was fierce. There are other Mayas out there, Daniel. Other women bleeding in the snow, waiting for someone to find them. Other children hiding in boxcars, praying for rescue. Other warriors who've lost their purpose and need someone to show them the way back. Daniel looked at the crowd, at the survivors who had gathered to celebrate their freedom, at the agents and deputies who had risked their lives to save them, at Ghost, who was still playing with Eli and Sophie, still being the gentlest creature in the world, despite everything he'd seen and done. You really want to do this? I want to do this more than anything I've ever wanted. Maya met his eyes. Except maybe one thing. What's that? I want to marry you. Daniel's heart stopped. Actually stopped for one long, breathless moment. Maya, I know.
It's soon. It's crazy. We've only been together for a year, and half of that was recovery and trials and trauma.
She was crying now, but she was also smiling. But I love you, Daniel Mercer. I've loved you since you carried me out of that snow. I'll love you until the day I die. And I don't want to waste another minute pretending that we have time to take things slow. We don't have a ring. I don't need a ring. We don't have witnesses. We have 200 witnesses. Maya gestured at the crowd. We have FBI agents and trafficking survivors, and a German shepherd who saved both our lives. I can't think of better witnesses than that. Daniel looked at her, at this woman who had crawled through a blizzard because strangers mattered more than her pain, who had seen his darkness and chosen light anyway, who had given him something to fight for when he'd forgotten how. Yes, he said. Yes, what? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll build the Boxcar Project with you.
Yes, I'll spend the rest of my life helping people who need it, and loving you, and pretending I understand why a woman like you would want a broken soldier like me. Maya kissed him. The crowd, which had been politely pretending not to watch, erupted in cheers. Did I just witness a proposal? Mara appeared beside them, Eli and Sophie in tow. Please tell me I just witnessed a proposal. You witnessed a proposal, Maya said, still holding Daniel's face. They're getting married, Sophie shrieked, and suddenly they were surrounded, agents and survivors and civilians, all of them congratulating, all of them crying, all of them celebrating the particular joy of two wounded people finding their way to each other. Ghost pushed through the crowd and sat at Daniel's feet, looking up with amber eyes that held something like approval. You knew, didn't you? Daniel said to the dog. You've known for months. Ghost's tail wagged. Of course he knew. He always knew. The wedding was held 6 months later at the cabin in Montana. Small, intimate, exactly what Daniel and Maya wanted. Mara was the maid of honor. Deputy Hayes was the best man. Ghost was the ring bearer, a role he took very seriously, carrying a small pillow in his mouth with the focused determination of a dog on a mission. Agent Torres officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Dearly beloved, he said, we are gathered here today to witness the union of two people who found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. A Navy SEAL who came to Montana to die and found a reason to live. An FBI agent who crawled through a blizzard because 23 strangers mattered more than her pain.
Daniel looked at Maya. She was beautiful in white, her scars visible but no longer shameful. She had chosen a dress that didn't hide them. A statement, she said, that her wounds were part of her story. Daniel and Maya have asked me to keep this brief, Torres continued. They're not traditional people, and they didn't want a traditional ceremony. So I'll just say this. In my 30 years in law enforcement, I've seen a lot of darkness. I've seen what people do to each other when they think no one's watching. I've seen cruelty and greed and evil in forms that would make most people lose faith in humanity. He paused, looking at the couple. But I've also seen this. Two broken people who chose to heal together. Two warriors who found something worth fighting for. Two souls who looked at the abyss and said, "Not today." That's what love looks like when it's real. Not the fairy tale version, not the Hollywood version. The real, messy, complicated, beautiful version that survives because both people refuse to give up. Daniel reached for Maya's hand. She was crying. He was too. By the power vested in me by the internet and the state of Montana, I pronounce you husband and wife.
Torres smiled. Kiss her, Commander. That's an order. Daniel obeyed. The crowd cheered. Ghost barked his approval. And in that moment, surrounded by the people who had become his family, Daniel Mercer finally understood what home felt like. The Boxcar project launched 3 months after the wedding. Maya designed the organizational structure. Daniel recruited the personnel. Mara provided the community connections. Within a year, they had helped rescue 18 trafficking victims, supported 43 domestic violence survivors, and trained over 100 veterans to become advocates for the vulnerable. Nora's Canadian case broke wide open, leading to the arrest of 37 traffickers and the recovery of 52 victims. Daniel led the tactical consultation. Maya coordinated with international law enforcement. Ghost became the unofficial mascot, his photo appearing in newspapers alongside headlines about the K9 who started a movement. But the work wasn't all victories. There were failures. Cases that went cold. Victims who couldn't be found. Monsters who escaped justice. Daniel learned to carry those losses the way he carried Yemen. Not as weights that crushed him, but as fuel that drove him forward. You can't save everyone, Maya told him after a particularly difficult case. You can only save the ones you can reach. And the ones we can't? We remember them, we honor them, and we keep fighting so that the next one might be different. It was a hard lesson, but Daniel had learned harder ones. 2 years after the blizzard, a letter arrived at the cabin. This one had a return address, a hospital in Colorado, the prison medical ward where Viktor Kozlov was spending his final days. The letter was short. Commander Mercer, I am told I have days, not weeks. The pain is considerable, but that is not why I write. I want you to know that I have followed your work with the Boxcar project. I have read the articles, studied the statistics, and tracked your progress with the same attention I once devoted to my own operations. You have done well, better than I expected, better than I believed possible. I still hate you. I will die hating you. But I am also grateful to you in a way I did not think I could feel. You showed me what I could have been, what I might have built if I had chosen differently. The thought haunts me, not with regret, because I do not believe in regret, but with curiosity. What would Viktor Kozlov have been if he had used his considerable talents for good instead of evil? I will never know, and perhaps that is my true punishment. Not the cell, not the cancer, but the knowledge that I had potential I never fulfilled. Goodbye, Commander. May you live long and continue to be unpredictable. Viktor Kozlov. Daniel read the letter twice.
Then he walked to the fireplace and burned it, just as he had burned the first one.
Kozlov?
Maya asked.
Kozlov. He's dying. He wanted to say goodbye.
Are you okay?
Daniel thought about the man who had tried to kill Maya, who had enslaved thousands, who had funded terror and destruction across continents. I'm okay, he said. He made his choices. He lived with them. Now he'll die with them. He paused. That's all any of us can do. Maya came to him and wrapped her arms around his waist. I love you, she said. I love you too. Are you thinking about him? About what he could have been?
No. I'm thinking about what we are, what we've built, what we'll continue to build. Daniel kissed her forehead. The past is the past. The future is what matters. Ghost ambled over and pressed against their legs, his presence a reminder that some bonds transcended words. Come on, Daniel said. We have work to do. On the third anniversary of the blizzard, the Boxcar project held its annual celebration. Over 300 people attended. Survivors, volunteers, law enforcement partners, and the families who had been reunited because of their work. Daniel stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. At Mara and her children, now thriving in their new life. At Nora, who had become the most effective sheriff in the region's history. At the 23 women from the Seattle warehouse, many of whom had become advocates themselves. At Maya, sitting in the front row, her hand resting on her belly, 6 months pregnant with their first child. 3 years ago, Daniel began, I drove to Montana to die. I had lost my brothers. I had lost my purpose. I had lost the will to keep breathing. And then I found a woman in the snow. She was bleeding. She was freezing. She was holding on to life by her fingernails because 23 strangers needed her to survive. I didn't know it then, but that woman would save my life. Not by pulling me from danger. I was the one who pulled her. But by showing me that life was still worth living, that there were still people worth fighting for, that the darkness I've been carrying wasn't the end of the story. He paused, looking at Maya. We built the Boxcar project because of what happened in that Montana boxcar. Because a mother named Mara sheltered strangers when she had every reason to turn them away. Because an FBI agent named Maya refused to let a bullet and a blizzard end her mission. Because a dog named Ghost found someone in the snow and wouldn't let go. Ghost, lying at Daniel's feet, lifted his head at the sound of his name. In 3 years, we've helped rescue 127 trafficking victims. We've supported 312 domestic violence survivors. We've trained over 500 advocates and volunteers. Those are numbers. They're important, but they're not the whole story. The whole story is the woman who called our hotline at 3 a.m. because she finally found the courage to run. It's the child who wrote us a letter saying, "Thank you for giving me my mommy back." It's the veteran who came to us broken and left us whole, ready to fight for others the way we fought for him. That's what the Boxcar project is about. Not statistics, not headlines. People. Individual human beings who needed help and found it. Daniel's voice cracked. He didn't try to hide it. My brothers died in Yemen. Marcus, James, Anthony, William, David, and Robert, Maya's cousin. They were the best men I ever knew. They believed in service. They believed in sacrifice. They believed that protecting the innocent was worth any cost. I carry them with me every day, not as weights, as wings. They lift me up when I want to fall. They remind me why we fight. They whisper in the quiet moments that the work continues. Because that's what they would have wanted. Not tears, not monuments. Action. The ongoing, relentless, stubborn action of people who refuse to let evil win. So tonight, we celebrate. We celebrate the lives we've saved and the lives we'll save tomorrow. We celebrate the community we've built and the community that still needs building. We celebrate the simple, radical, transformative power of showing up for people who need us. And we remember. We remember the ones we couldn't save, the ones who slipped through our fingers, the ones whose names we'll never know, but whose absence we feel. We remember them by doing the work, by being present, by refusing to look away. That's all any of us can do. Show up, do the work, love the people in front of us. Daniel looked at Maya, at the life growing inside her, at the future they were building together. 3 years ago, I came to Montana to end my story. Instead, I found a new beginning. That's what the Boxcar project offers. Not an ending, a beginning. A chance to turn pain into purpose. A community that catches you when you fall. We are all, in some way, huddling in boxcars, waiting for the storm to pass, hoping someone will find us. The Boxcar Project exists to be that someone, to find the lost, to shelter the vulnerable, to remind every person in crisis that they are not alone. Not now, not ever. Not as long as we have breath to fight, and hands to help, and hearts that refuse to stop caring. Daniel stepped back from the podium. The crowd rose to their feet, applauding, crying, celebrating. Maya met him at the edge of the stage. She was crying too. Happy tears, she would say. The kind that let the sad out so the happy can come in. That was beautiful, she whispered. That was true. Same thing. Ghost appeared between them, pressing against their legs the way he always did when emotions ran high. Daniel reached down and scratched behind his ears. We did good, didn't we, boy? Ghost's tail wagged. We're going to keep doing good. For a long time. For as long as we're able. The dog looked up at him with those amber eyes that had seen war and peace, death and life, despair and hope. I know, Daniel said. I know. Later that night, after the celebration ended and the guests went home, Daniel sat on the cabin porch with Ghost beside him. Maya was inside sleeping. The pregnancy exhausted her, though she would never admit it. The mountains were silver in the moonlight. The same mountains where he had found Maya. The same wilderness that had tried to kill them both, and failing that, had become their home. You know what I realized? Daniel said to Ghost. 3 years ago, I thought my story was over. I thought Yemen was the ending. I thought the only chapter left was the one where I disappeared. Ghost lifted his head, listening. But that wasn't the ending. That was just a transition. A dark chapter that led to a brighter one. Daniel looked at the stars. Marcus used to say that stories don't end when the hero falls. They end when the hero stops getting up. He thought about his brothers, about the men who had died in Yemen, whose sacrifice had set him on this path, about the legacy they had left, not in monuments or medals, but in the man he had become. I'm still getting up, Daniel said. Every day. For Maya. For our child. For everyone who needs someone to fight for them. He touched Ghost's head. For you. The dog's tail thumped against the porch. We're going to be okay, boy. Better than okay. We're going to build something that lasts. Something that helps people long after we're gone. Ghost stood up, stretched, and walked to the edge of the porch. He surveyed his territory, the cabin, the trees, the mountains, the endless Montana sky. Then he looked back at Daniel with an expression that said, I know. I've always known. Daniel smiled. Yeah, I guess you have. He stood and joined his dog at the railing. Together, they watched the stars wheel overhead, the same stars that had witnessed a blizzard, a rescue, a love story, and the mission that would continue as long as there were people who needed saving. 3 years ago, Daniel said, I drove to Montana to die. I found a woman in the snow instead. I found a family in a boxcar. I found a purpose I didn't know I was looking for. He took a deep breath. The mountain air was cold but clean, filling his lungs with a particular freshness of a place untouched by human cruelty. I found my way home. Ghost pressed against his leg. The warmth was real, solid, undeniable. And Daniel Mercer, Navy SEAL, survivor, husband, father-to-be, founder of a movement that had saved hundreds and would save thousands more, stood in the moonlight and let himself believe, finally and completely, that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Not because the universe had a plan, not because destiny had guided him, but because he had chosen. He had chosen to stop when he saw the blood in the snow. He had chosen to fight when he could have walked away. He had chosen to live when death would have been easier. And those choices, simple, stubborn, human choices, had changed everything. That was the lesson of the Boxcar. That was the message of the Boxcar Project. That was the truth Daniel carried in his heart and shared with everyone who would listen. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by what you choose to do next. Choose wisely. Choose bravely. Choose love. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope tonight. Share it with the veteran who's struggling to find purpose. Share it with the survivor who's afraid to ask for help. Share it with anyone who has been through the storm and is waiting for the sun to rise. Tell us in the comments, who was your hero? Was it Daniel, who came to die and chose to live? Was it Maya, who crawled through a blizzard because strangers mattered more than her pain? Was it Ghost, who found a dying woman in the snow and refused to let the mountain take her? Was it Mara, who turned her boxcar into a sanctuary and her pain into power? Drop your city. Let us see how far this story traveled. Subscribe because somewhere tonight, another warrior is driving toward darkness, and they need to know that light is possible. At -30 degrees Celsius, the human body begins shutting down in minutes. But the human spirit, the spirit that fights through blizzards, shelters strangers, and builds families from broken pieces, that spirit can survive anything. Daniel Mercer came to Montana to end his story. Instead, he found a new beginning. And sometimes, maybe more often than we realize, that's exactly how the best stories start. Not with a triumph, not with a victory, but with a choice. A choice to keep going. A choice to help someone else. A choice to believe that tomorrow can be different. Make that choice today. Make it for yourself. Make it for the people who need you. Make it because the world needs more boxcars, more shelters, more sanctuaries, more places where the lost can find their way home. You are not alone. You are never alone. And somewhere out there, a German shepherd is watching the snow, waiting to find you. All you have to do is keep crawling. Help will come. It always does.